Hi everyone, and today I'm going to be discussing everything you need to know about vocal tics. So, number one, tics can be long and complex phrases. They can be in context and they can actually have a linguistic meaning. So sometimes they can look purposeful, however they are not. They are totally involuntary because the human brain is a complex thing and tics can be complex. So if you hear someone yelling a whole phrase and maybe it's in context, then it is still a tic, and you should trust us, because I think with the complex tics there is a lot of misunderstanding, and a lot of people have accused me of faking my condition when I'm not. I never have, I never will, and I think it's just nobody should have to be judged like that. So I think that it's important for people to know that tics can actually be long and complex phrases and they're not actually purposeful, even though they may look it. Number two, we do not choose what we tic. If I could tic non-offensive things rather than my coprolalia, I would, but unfortunately we don't really have a say in it. It's pretty much that I sort of describe it like my brain's like it's got a 3-year-old in it and it just wants to mortify me by yelling whatever I shouldn't yell in a situation, which makes everyone stare at me. Number three, our tics don't actually have volume control. Like, I've had people ask me, can you whisper that or can you say it quieter? But unfortunately that's not really an option. I wish it was, but if in public, if I could not scream it or yell whatever I'm ticking, and if I could whisper it instead, that would be really great, but unfortunately that doesn't happen because our tics are involuntary. We don't choose the volume, unfortunately. Number four, I know that in the media the discussion and portrayal of coprolalia can be seen as quite controversial, but although sometimes on TV it can reinforce the stigma that Tourette's about swearing, I do still think it's important to raise awareness of coprolalia on, well, the TV and media and stuff, because it does still affect us and it can have really long-lasting social implications and can lead us to become withdrawn and stuff, and we also face a lot of discrimination. So I think it's important to, rather than ignore coprolalia altogether, I think it's more important to actually change how it's presented. So I think that rather than just viewing it as a funny thing, we should actually view it, you can still view some of it as funny, because I do agree that my tic's funny, but it's important to also show the hard side and the difficulty that we face. And I think it's also important that rather than actors pretending to have Tourette's in films and stuff, I think we should actually have more portrayal of people who actually have Tourette's in, I don't know, documentaries and stuff, and show exactly what we face and not just the funny stuff. Number five, please don't get offended at our tics. As I said, I have had coprolalia quite a lot, and unfortunately people get offended, but that can just make us feel really guilty because we don't want to be yelling these things. As I said, we don't choose what we tic and stuff. So I think understanding is really important, understanding that we don't control it, so please try not to get offended, because then we just get upset. Number six, we're not actually thinking what we tic. Like, if I tic something offensive, people are like, are you actually thinking that? But I say, no, I'm not. For me, I kind of say it's like a second brain or something. Like, I get this uncontrollable thought. It's like an intrusive thought that comes into my mind, and I'm thinking, don't tic that, but it goes around in my head in a loop, and then I uncontrollably say it. But it doesn't actually reflect my opinion at all, so it's not what I'm actually thinking. It's just, I sort of involuntarily think what I shouldn't think and then tic it. But it doesn't reflect my opinion, and I'm not a horrible person for having coprolalia, because if you don't know coprolalia, which I've been talking about, it's the inappropriate and obscene tics. Only affects 10 to 15% of people with Tourette's, but it still affects some of us, and it can really have a lot of social implications. Number seven, I got this comment on one of my videos where people said, oh, that's not a tic, tics are only one word or two. But tics aren't necessarily just one word or two, because, as I said in my first point, there can be full long sentences, and everyone's tics are different because it's a spectrum. There's very mild tics, there's very severe tics, simple and complex. So pretty much anything that the human body can physically do can be a tic. I've had vocal tics that are up to 20 words long, so there's a lot. So there is such thing. So this is number 8. There is such thing as observational tics. So sometimes if I see someone with a funny hair colour, I might yell something about that. I might accidentally comment on someone's weight or whatever, but it's really important to know that I don't actually mean it, and as I said, it's sort of like an intrusive thought. I think what I shouldn't think and then uncontrollably say it, but it doesn't reflect my opinion, and I'm not a horrible person. It's sort of very impulsive, and it sort of says the one thing you shouldn't say, like a 3-year-old trying to mortify me. But yeah, observational tics are a thing, but they are not purposeful, even though they may look it, and they're not actually directed at anyone. They're just uncontrollable, triggered by certain aspects in the environment that we see, hear, maybe smell, or anything else. Number 9. I actually don't mind people laughing with me at some of my tics, because, to be honest, if I tic something very random, I'm not talking about the offensive stuff, obviously, I wouldn't laugh at that, but if I tic something very random, for example, one of my favourite tics I had was when I would yell, "Oompa Loompas are sexy." That was probably the funniest vocal tic I've had, but to be honest, I laugh first, usually, so I don't mind people, like my friends, laughing with me, because there's a difference between laughing with me and at me. If you laugh with me, it kind of reassures me that you're not offended and diffuses the tension, but obviously there is a difference. If you're laughing at me, then it just sounds like you're taking the mick, but laughing with me, when we're all laughing together, and you can see I'm not struggling with it, and you can just sort of see it in a light-hearted way, then it's good. I don't mind people laughing at my tics. Number 10. Some tics actually occur once and never happen again. Like, tics are usually said to be repetitive movements and sounds, and that is for some tics. However, with my vocal tics, especially the coprolalia, obscene ones, inappropriate ones, it's basically the same thing, observational ones and random ones, they can just occur once in an environment and then I'll probably never tic them again. And that's sort of with my random outbursts and phrases. So Tourette's is very random. I don't even know where half the things come from. I've had people ask before, where did that even come from? Like, I honestly have no idea. I wasn't even thinking about it. As I said, we don't think what we tic. It just, I don't even know. My brain is just putting random words together that seem to make sense. It's weird. Number 11. Tics are not a behavioural problem. They are a uncontrollable neurological symptom. They are the brain misfiring signals. They're not psychological, they're not behavioural, so obviously we can't help it, and it's just a brain misfiring signal, so please don't punish us. And if you are a teacher or something and you have a student with Tourette's, then obviously please don't send us out of the class. I have been sent out of the class for ticking before, and it's quite humiliating because I obviously don't mean it. Number 12. I think I said this a couple of minutes ago, but tics are of a spectrum of severity. So as I said, anything can be a tic. But so vocal tics, which is mainly what this video is about, they can range from maybe a whistle, a cough, a tongue click, to certain words, or maybe, as I said, whole phrases, or coprolalia, echolalia, which is where you repeat what someone said, or Palalia. Palalia is where you repeat your own words, and it can sometimes sound like stuttering, and there is such thing as stuttering tics as well. So obviously there's a whole variety of different tics you can have, and what tic you get depends on the individual, but tics always change anyway, so sometimes you can just wake up with a new tic and you're like, oh great, I've got to live with this now. Also, when you develop a new tic, you don't know how long it's going to last. For example, I had one complex motor tic, it wasn't vocal tic, but I had one complex motor tic that lasted 4 years. I was pretty sick at that, but then I have had some tics that have only lasted a day, which is very strange. Don't really know why. Oh, here we go. Number 13. Sometimes I find my vocal tics actually happen in a different voice. Some people have mentioned, like, when I'm vocal ticking something, my voice sort of goes a bit high-pitched and shrill. That doesn't always happen, because sometimes I have ticked my normal voice, but sometimes you can easily tell if something is ticked because it'll sort of go in a high-pitched voice and you can usually tell that it's obviously not me saying it. But yes. Oh, number 14. Certain words become tics. So, for example, someone might tick the word ostrich. It can be that random. But for me, I found that it's more about how the word feels than how it sounds. Because before tics, some people, including myself, get an urge, and that urge needs to be fulfilled by the tic, which is involuntary. So for me, I find that some of my most common single word tics were calculator, carrot, cactus, and I think there was another one. Canada. So yeah, I had 4 word tics, and actually I've had a lot more then, but there are 4 that happened around the same time. I think it's more about how it feels and how it sounds, because I had to get the k sound, because calculator, carrot, Canada, and why do I keep always forgetting one? Calculator, Canada, carrot, and whatever I just said a minute ago, I've already forgot it, but it's always the k sound that I have to make as a tic, and redirection can work for some people, however, obviously, redirection doesn't work for everyone, and I just find that because my vocal tics don't bother me that much, if it's a single word, then I don't need to redirect it, it's just something that happens, I guess. But yeah, certain words become tics because of how they feel, or sometimes it can actually be something you've heard. For example, I have sometimes picked up things off TV and stuff, so sometimes if you hear something and it sort of sticks in your brain, if it's like memorable or something or funny, you might tic that, so that can sometimes happen. It's sort of the power of suggestion, which is also why some people can pick up tics of other people with Tourette's, so it's quite strange. And the last one is, so this is number 15, basically there's no intention behind our tics. As I said, we don't choose them, we don't intend to offend anyone if we tic anything inappropriate, we don't intend to tic anything really, because it's voluntary, and also our tics aren't actually directed at anyone. As I said, they can be in response to things we see in the environment or stuff, or things we hear in the environment, but they're not actually directed because they're not us saying them, they are involuntary. So we don't choose to say it, therefore they're not actually directed at anyone in specific, therefore we obviously don't want to offend anyone, and we just hope you don't take offence. I hope this video has taught you a bit more about vocal tics and Tourette's, and hopefully at some point I can make a video about motor tics and stuff, because that's also really important. Although I do find that my vocal tics are probably one of the most motor tics are probably one of the most, vocal tics are probably one of the most socially isolating symptoms because they're the most noticeable. With motor tics, they can be noticeable, but I find that because my vocal tics can be quite loud, you usually hear them before I even walk into the room, so they're very noticeable. People can hear me coming. So yeah, hopefully I can make one about motor tics too though as well. So I hope you enjoyed this video, hope it helped, bye bye.